Yes, it is true. The Black Ace Hockey Podcast is back, and we're right here in action. My name is Glenn Abs, and I'm always with your co-host, Nick Jenks. What's going on, man?
Nothing, man. We took a week off. Lots to catch up on in the hockey world, especially with the Four Nations tournament. Hope everybody got to catch at least some of it because, man, it just shows how badly we've been starved for best on best hockey over the last several years. So, it's just the most exciting thing you've seen, and I'm sure it's generating buzz just across the board for the Olympics next year for this again.
Single-handedly, probably the best thing Gary Bettman has done in forever, outside of the expansion to Vegas and stealing Fleury away from the Penguins. So that's really the best move he's ever done. You know, hockey's been on practically every channel right now. Matthew Tkachuk was on Jimmy Fallon last night. I know that's not a big deal to some people, but for the NHL, you know, for a guy that's not a McDavid or Crosby to be on there is kind of unreal. But we'll get into that. You know, we haven't spoke since what, a week and a half, 2 weeks almost now, and so any updates with you?
Nothing too crazy. I mean, unfortunately, I'll say the high school hockey season is over. The playoffs have begun. I think we missed playoffs by like 3 points or something. Just you know how it goes sometimes. A couple of games that you just want back. It's like, man, looking back, we should have won those 3 games. We've been in playoffs, but you know that happens. So overall, a good season. I think we had some fun, and we're returning a lot of good players next year. So encouraged for the future here.
Nice, yeah. It's always that like weird time of year where you're like, thank God hockey's over. But when you're playing, you're like, God, like, you know, another year goes by or another year older, going to college. Some people may not be playing in college. Some people might be playing on a club team. You know, some people, you know, you're going to the friggin' shove. Some people, the FPHL is calling. You know, it's different animals out there. But I'm so glad hockey season's almost over, man. I am so sick of just the constant yelling and garbageness that I have to put up with most of the time. But it's nice to have 50-degree weather back in Pittsburgh, PA. It's not really like snowing right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the most snow you got this year, Jax?
The most snow we got, I think there was one 24-hour stretch where we got like 4 feet. I think it was just bananas. I mean, I've got a
casual 4 feet.
Yeah, not a big deal. I've got a 4-foot fence in my backyard, and the fence was like almost completely buried.
Right, nice.
I was like, holy crap. So, you know, you're out there shoveling paths in the yard so the dog could go out and do his thing. Nice. It makes you hate living in the northern U.S. sometimes. I'm like, I'm just going to get out of here and just go where the sun's always
right,
shining.
But like, see, you get literally every season and a beach. So it's not like you're really deprived of everything. Like, if you leave and go to North Carolina, Florida, South Carolina, you're gonna be like, dang, like people are gonna be hiding inside on it with like a sprinkle of snow. You're gonna be like, dude, like,
true.
This is like you go and like street racing this. You know what I mean? Like that's the snow that you're used to. So we're both used to. So
you got it.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy towards this time of year, and I think Four Nations really captivated everybody because everybody was on that little lull of hockey season where it's playoffs for the kids, or you know, kind of winding down towards the end of the season. So games aren't as intense as they would be like towards the middle of the season. So seeing that, I think, sparked a lot of, you know, intrigue in hockey, and you can't get any better than. Yes, there's a few games before. I don't really care about U.S. Finland, U.S. Sweden, Canada Finland, Canada Sweden, but U.S. Canada, the first game, Let's talk about that game first. Right off the draw, mitts are flying, Jinx. I was on the ice during that, and I heard it. I'm like, oh my god! I think we once the period was over, we went and watched the clips. I was like, Christ, what are we doing? That's crazy. It was insane. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I was out. I can't remember if we had practice or what, but I missed the first U.S. Canada game.
Yeah,
At least I missed the first period, and it's like I missed all the action because there were 3 fights in the first 9 seconds, like you said, and it's like, oh my god, this is the most exciting game that's probably happened in the last 10 years at this point.
right.
It it goes to show you there's sort of two different styles, right? The U.S. doesn't have the, I'll say, the McDavid McKinnon super elite game changing forward that's just on a different level, but they've got guys who are willing to do whatever it takes to win. The Kachuk brothers, even Matthews has developed a more physical side of his game that he didn't really have the first couple of years. It's sort of that hard nosed, grinding style of hockey, and I think they really set the tone by doing that. I'm sure it was planned, and I'm sure they set the tone by doing that, and they were able to control and win that game. And then, we saw them play obviously for the championship, and it was sort of the team trying to do that same thing. I know, Kachuk was still hurt. Matthew Kachuk was still hurt. There were some guys banged up on the U.S. side. Canada had suffered some injuries at that point too, and we could probably talk about all the injuries that happened and how this is going to affect their NHL teams as well. But man, the U.S. Canada, there's no better hockey rivalry than that. And
Yeah,
give me more of that, please.
yeah. I don't even think most of these players cared if they got injured. You know what I mean? Like
No.
after that first game, they would have died for that second game. Like I think most were like in it for the moment. Like I always like to say, like, I forget what movie it was, or maybe it was a quote. It's just like a time and a place, right? Like this Four Nations is a time and a place in both countries where shit outside of hockey is affecting it. Like
Yes.
this was all eyes on, like both presidents, prime minister, whatever Canada has, they were watching. Like it wasn't just an Olympics. It wasn't like, okay, like, we have to watch root for our country. This was an all-star game tournament. That's what it was. So like,
and it's across other sports too. So where your thought just made me think about, this is the replacement for the NHL All-Star game.
Right.
They did this instead of the All-Star game. You had people from other sports, primarily like NFL, NBA, tweeting, these All-Star games have become a circus, and you've got hockey players out there during their All-Star break literally about to die for their country. Like, this is peak entertainment. Like, this is what it's all about. They got so many probably casual and even non-hockey fan viewers watching this just because of how big a deal it was and the compete level. These players going out there and doing everything they can to win for their country, for the logo on their chest.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
And I loved like the little bits and pieces that came out like during the week, like Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk like let the group chat slip, like, oh, like maybe Canada doesn't like each other, they don't have a group chat going, which I mean every hockey team has a group chat, like no matter what. But that was just a subtle jab. And then after the final game, like Seth Jarvis like screenshotted the group chat and put it on his Instagram story. Like subtle jabs like that, I think make it more than just a game. Like, yeah, it's sports, but it's the fun little banter that goes back and forth between some of these guys. And, not to knock on Finland and Sweden, I just think US and Canada was the main show. And if the NHL didn't get those two teams in the final game, I think it was going to be a flop.
Yep.
Like that, like Canada losing one game, like what are we doing here? Like, So, I want to just touch on the other two teams real quick, and I think just what is that region? Is it the Nordic region?
Yes.
Finland,
Yeah.
Norway, Sweden, Iceland.
Yeah. Sort of that. Yes. Yep.
Look at me in my geography skills. Just put me on a trivia table already, James. Just put me there. I'll win it all. Anyways, uh, Finland, Sweden. I think it was maybe Victor Hedman or somebody else was like big brother, little brother. Like this is the battle, like over just like that region. I'm sure over there the ratings had to be sick. The rating, I'm sure the only people that watched those games were that
Yep.
two countries, which it should be. It's about them. And give me your thoughts on that. I don't really know anybody that stood out. I'd say Patrick Laine, maybe. But Rasmus Dahlin was throwing the body against Canada. And McDavid's little jab with the cross check. Maybe he gets involved a little bit more. But yeah, that's really all I have for those two teams.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before the tournament a little bit, but it definitely showed. I mean, Finland in particular just doesn't have the high end talent that maybe other countries have. Sweden has it to some extent, but Canada and the U.S. by far and away are the number ones as far as that goes. Finland struggled. I mean, they had some good stretches. They would have liked to see more out of Rantanen. I think Rantanen struggled a bit during the tournament, and he's definitely struggling with Carolina ever since that trade.
Well, there's trade rumors that he could be a rental at the deadline.
Heard that. Could you
mill.
imagine him going in the door, out the door like that Simpsons meme? Walk in, put your hat down, pick it back up, back out the door.
That's great.
Yeah, so I think they wanted more from him. Saros did not play well at all.
No.
And they had to switch around goaltending a little bit. I think overall the team would have liked to have had a better showing, but I do think there were some guys who stood out from Finland. You mentioned Laine for sure. And they were missing a couple guys too. I know they had some guys that couldn't play due to injury. That didn't even go to the tournament. So, and then the Sweden too. I think they had some guys underperform as well. I think when I think of Sweden, I think I'll say, Hedman's obviously the first one that comes to mind, but
Carlson.
They've got Carlson too. I mean, they've got a lot of that sort of I'll call it star power on that team that Finland doesn't have. But they sort of need a youth movement a little bit, where they've got to get some of these younger guys going if they're going to have any longevity in the Four Nation fight. So we'll see what comes out of that for the Olympics. Maybe they mix up their roster a little bit. They obviously came away with a huge win that I don't think anybody was expecting.
Yeah.
So I think the writing was sort of on the wall for those two teams to not get to the championship game. I think Sweden had a chance because of their upset win. But yeah, they're obviously the 3 and 4 if you're looking at those 4 teams that were participating in this event.
I think everybody knew that going in, so it's like building that rivalry against each other a little bit, and I think that's what you saw from like some of the comments from the players. Like it's little brother, big brother. It's battle of those two countries up there, and then the region. Like I don't even know if Norway actually plays hockey. They're just kind of in the middle between these two countries going at each other. So, but yeah, so the first game 3-1 United States. Binnington, tough outing. I don't think really anybody recommended him to be Canada's front runner for goalie. I would have probably bought Carey Price back, or probably brought I don't know, Marty Brodeur back, or maybe Marc Andre Fleury or somebody. But stuff happens when you get shit on that much, unless you're Tristan Jarry, that you beat off, and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna lock so hard in that come championship Sunday, nobody's gonna beat me. Like I'm just gonna lock in, and that's what happened. You look at this Canadian team, and I think there's too much heavyweight, just monsters on every line. Like imagine going up against Crosby McKinnon, right? Like, whew, finally got rid of that one. Then McDavid comes out with Marner. You're like, Christ, like what is going? And then Braden Point comes out with Marchand. Like, dude, like I can't get away from these guys, right? So when you say best on best, like having to go up against a team like that is definitely scary. And I don't even know how you attack it, but USA somehow figured it out the first game. And maybe it was just, hey, let's rattle some cages, bring our youth movement in, just grind these old guys down. And quote unquote old, these guys are like 35. So like just grind them down, maybe knock them off balance a little bit. Knock them off balance. So moving on to the championship game, I want to hear your side first, your take first on just the goal. Let's start with the goaltending from both teams.
Yeah, you sort of said it that Bennington did not have his best outing in the first matchup. He certainly did in the second matchup. I mean, He made some ridiculous saves, especially in overtime. I remember there being 2 or 3 highlight reel saves where it's like, oh my God, like if he keeps doing this, nothing's getting by him, and we're in trouble here.
Yeah.
So he came out and had his best outing. I think that's what Canada needed. I don't think Hellebuck played bad. I think he just got beat by a better goaltender. I mean, Hellebuck was so consistent throughout the tournament. Did everything that the U.S. needed him to do. I think one thing, with the exception of the Finland game, one thing that the U.S. struggled to do is generate offense. I mean, 3 goals in the first game against Canada, 2 goals in the second game against Canada. You got to find ways to score. And, Binnington shut him down in the second game. I know they had plenty of opportunities. That's what they needed to do. They needed to generate the scoring opportunities, and they managed to find ways to do that, but they got goalied, and that's just what it comes down to. So, to be honest with you, I was a little bit surprised that Binnington did not win tournament MVP because he won that championship game. Like,
can't give a no-name goalie, a MVP, Jenks. I'm sorry, it's the NHL. You can't do it. I might get shit on for that, but like Jordan Binnington is a no-name. He's a no. Nobody knows him in the U.S. I promise you.
I would say if you would compare all of like the names that if you rattled off 20 different goaltenders, Binnington would probably be one of the names that a casual did not know. They'd be like, I don't know who that is. Who's he play for?
Is he a soccer star? Sounds like a person serving me a deli sandwich. I promise you, like, the NHL's biggest market is the United States. Suck it, Canada. Yes. That's just how it is.
Well,
but it is, Jenks. It is. There's what, 5 Canadian teams, Jenks?
Yeah, but all of Canada follows them.
Okay.
I mean, you've got an entire country
up in Toronto.
See the thing.
We're talking about a throwaway game up in Rochester, Jenks, right now.
This isn't a throwaway game up in Rochester. We're gonna get copyrighted for that. Jesus.
Sue us, Herb Brooks.
See, I don't know because the U.S. has so much competition, especially with like football and basketball and baseball. Like most people that I talk to are not hockey fans, and I think if you go into Canada and you just walked up to somebody and was like, "Who's your NHL team?" They'd be like, "Oh, boom, Toronto or Ottawa or whoever."
Right, because that's all they have. Because the CFL is not a real thing.
That's what I'm saying is I think to say that the U.S. is a bigger hockey market than Canada.
Not a hockey market, but it's viewership.
Just purely based on numbers?
That's all we care about. NHL is an entertainment system. If nobody watches, it ceases to exist.
I don't know that I agree with that.
Look at the
we'll go.
PWHL. Nobody went the first time it was created. It ceased to exist, and they had to do the U.S. and Canada travel circuit.
Yeah.
And now it's back because people are going to the games now and watching on ESPNU. That's what we're doing.
All right, we'll go with it. Let's move on to the next point.
Okay. I'm just saying he's a no-name. Anyways. But yeah, I agree. Connor Hellebuyck, I would say had a better tournament overall. And I think that stood out for anybody that really watched. And Crosby did his thing, just absolute animal. Can't stop him really. I think the dumbest thing he did was that stupid game-winning goal to Mitch Marner, where I still don't understand this power play, where one guy takes it up and right when he's about to cross, he just drops it back to the guy flying in. Like, I don't get it. I'll never understand it. But I thought the little clip that generated after that, like with Marchand like being mic'd up and him Sid and McDavid talking in the locker room was pretty cool to see that side of him. I was actually starting to like Marchand for a little bit after that. Like,
and then you paused and you're like, wait a minute, that's still Brad Marchand.
Still the worst person ever. Yeah.
I love those. I love the candid moments or the mic'd up moments or whatever. I could just watch those all day long.
Yep.
The in the game moments where you've got the live mic and the actual players' reactions, those are the best.
Yeah. And so Championship Sunday comes around, and I don't think the NHL could have wrote it up any better. I mean, the script writers just did their damn thing. They got it to OT, and Austin Matthews got a little lackadaisical. He's like, man, I wish I was in Cancun right now. Man, Turks and Caicos is looking fine. So he decides to leave literally the best player in the entire globe open.
Yeah.
Like, this is something I do in EASHL. Like, I'm just like, I don't want to cover the guy in front. And then maybe I'll go out and poke Jack or something. Like maybe that'll work. Like, what do you think he was thinking leaving McJesus open in the middle, in the house? Like, some people would say house, it's the house. Protect the house.
Yeah, that's a momentary lapse of judgment there. I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to do. Just have somebody glued to McDavid for the entire overtime and say, this guy is not touching the puck without me having a stick between his legs. It's almost like you think back to like Crosby's golden goal and you're like, how did that even happen? How did McDavid find himself in that position to have that opportunity wide open in front of the net? And he buries it. He makes he makes the exact play that you need to in the moment, big time moment for a big time player. And that's one that Canada is going to celebrate forever.
Yeah.
And a lot of people out there, until we beat him in the Olympics, right. USA is taking gold. A lot of people saying that McDavid goal was like the McDavid taking over Team Canada from Crosby, the passing of the torch. I've heard that a couple of times. I saw it on Twitter.
Matters. Do it in a tournament that matters.
Let's see it in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Let's see it in the Olympics.
But yeah, I agree. I think you're right with the passing of the torch. I think they even interviewed him about that. Like, that was one of the interview questions.
He shut it down though. He's like, nope. As long as Crosby's around, this is his team. Like, McDavid said that flat out. Which, to be fair, yes. As long as Crosby's around, he is the captain of Team Canada. And then when he retires, we have a different conversation.
Do you know, like, the last time somebody in hockey has like captivated the world like him? Now, like, we're talking like Mario, like Gretzky, like, I get those, but like, he's like, literally, he can do anything he wants in that country. Same with Drake. He can do anything he wants. I just don't know. Yeah, so I just don't know. Like, he's like Taylor Swift in Canada, essentially. Pretty much on the equivalent scale.
He is untouchable. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Yes,
Same with like
he's
Ben
the pride of
Roethlisberger in
Canada.
Pittsburgh, and Mario won't ever leave Pittsburgh either because nobody will know him outside of Pittsburgh or Canada. So, um, but yeah, I also like there's a clip of John Cooper, literally on the bench saying, "Somebody be selfish, just shoot the puck." Like that's it.
Yeah,
Like sometimes the puck's on net. That's all it happens, and sometimes you need that because as your McDavid, Crosby, like you don't like your first look is for somebody else because you're a playmaker. You're not looking to be that guy because I can put the puck in the back of the net whenever I want at will, essentially. So John Cooper's like, dude, just somebody on this stupid team just shoot the stupid puck into the stupid net and let stupid win. That's it. That's all.
yeah.
That's all that needed to happen and end up happening. Something as simple as being left open in the middle. And of course, in Toronto media fashion, the first game for the Toronto Maple Leafs back off the break. One of the reporters, I think, is the usual suspect, just the worst questions known to man. Asked Austin Matthews if that play will haunt him for the rest of his life. And Matthews just looked at him like, sure, Kevin. Like, sure, buddy. Like, yeah. Yeah. Like, that tournament meant nothing. But it means a lot for just some of the pride for each country. So, yeah, man, what a tournament. I don't think the NHL knew it was going to get that big.
No.
But luckily, the time and place of the universe set Canada v USA up. Maybe Big Don was like work. He's like, hey, Gary, like, need me to pump the brakes or put some premium gasoline on this thing or what? I don't know. Maybe he said some things to get the fires going, but it was absolutely stupid how big that thing got.
Yeah, best possible outcome for this sport of hockey. 100%. It was a win for hockey in general.
Yep. And during the week, I think a few things got confirmed. The NHL will be a part of the IHF events moving forward. I think until 2028 or 2032 or something like that. But it's gonna flop, right? It's gonna go Olympics next 2 years, and then it's gonna go World Cup, and then it's gonna be back to Olympics.
Yeah, so it's Olympics in 26. The World Cup of hockey will be in 2028, and they've already said that it will be more than 4 nations. They're going to bring in other countries as well, similar to the last World Cup, but they're not going to do any of the Team North America or Team Europe. They're going to be actual country teams, and then back to the Olympics again in 2030. So that's what they've committed to at this point.
Can't even reuse any of the branding, like 4 nations. Like now you got to go like what,
Nope.
16 nations or
yeah. Well, I think they're just going back to World Cup of hockey.
Yeah, just call it the World Cup, I guess.
Yep.
Be lazy. Just be lazy so it can be easy. That's it. Sometimes it's that simple.
Yep.
But yeah, I hope everybody liked the 4 nations. Some of us got to watch it. Some of us were working. But I'm sure overall it was a good success for the NHL. I enjoyed it a lot better than the All-Star game. I'm sure those guys freaking loved it.
Oh yeah,
so much better than the All-Star game. So I hope moving forward something like that happens, or either they just shut the league down for 2 weeks. Like, hey, have your organization do their fan fest during that week or something. Like, don't do the All-Star game. All-Star game is so stupid nowadays. It's crazy, but we're back off the break, back off 4 nations. We got to get back to reality, and in reality, Ovi's still doing his damn thing. Ovi's still doing Ovi things. He got yet another Hattie. I would want to know which player, or are there multiple players, have Hatties in 3 different decades.
He's got to be the only one.
Like 2000. 2010, 2020. Like probably, Crosby too, maybe him.
Think of how many players have played in 3 different decades, let alone scored hat tricks in 3 different decades. I mean, you're probably counting on one hand those people, and
Right.
Ovi's one of them. Gretzky's probably one of them. Even players like Lemieux didn't play long enough to do that.
Right. Yager,
Um,
maybe?
maybe Yager, he played a
Maybe
long
Yager.
time.
Yeah.
That's a good question. You should look that up and report back to us.
Yeah, big stat guy over here. Yeah. Getzlaff, maybe? I don't know. So he's under 13 goals now. You think he's going to get there by the end of the season, the way the Caps are rolling?
So if he keeps scoring at this pace, the math says if he keeps scoring at this pace, he will get there this season. It's just a matter of, can he continue this insane pace? I mean, he's scoring at what's the rate right now? Is it like 0.8 goals per game? Like, it's ridiculous. It's almost a goal per game for him.
Well, all I know is if I'm Stromer, I'm just absolutely hammering the X button. Hit hold LT or hold RT, then hit X. Like, that's it. That's all you got to do.
You have one job, and it is to pass the puck to Alex Ovechkin.
Like, literally become Backstrom.
He has 29 goals, and he's only played 41 games. Remember, he was hurt.
Yeah,
that's insane.
It's freaking wild to watch, and I think outside of NHL, there's been a few suspensions. Trevor Zegras absolutely destroyed that one guy on the Red Wings, and I think he only got 4 games. Hartman got his 10-game sussy going. I think it just got reduced to 8. But outside of that, for NHL, it really hasn't been much. Obviously, we've only been back for a few games off of Four Nations, and as promised last week or 2 weeks ago, we were going to do our mid-season predictions for the NHL awards. And if anybody knows the NHL awards, Vezina, Hart, Calder, Norris, and President's Trophy. We don't do any of the Lady Bing or whatever they're called. I couldn't even tell you anything outside of those 4 trophies, to be honest.
I mean, like the Lady Bing's so hard to judge because a panel of people votes on it, and
Mark Messier Award, yeah.
Yeah, the Mark Messier Award is picked by Mark Messier. He picked Jacob Trouba last year, so we're not even going to speculate on
that. God, that's such a crazy award. That makes literally 0 sense. But let's start with the hardest one, I'd say.
Okay.
Give us your Calder Cup.
So I think preseason, the Calder Trophy. Yes, I know. I knew what you meant. I think the people know what you meant.
Yeah.
So my preseason pick was Michkov, and he certainly has had a great season. I mean, he's been a little bit streaky. He's had some really good stretches where he's scored a ton of goals, and then there was a while there early in the season where they were holding him out of the lineup a little bit, just sort of saying, hey, go upstairs and watch the game a little bit. Adapt to the North American games. Just watch. And I think it's helped him. He's been on fire lately. But the player who's been the most consistent is Macklin Celebrini. Yep. I mean, this guy came into the league, seems to have adjusted very quickly, and is already the best player on the Sharks, hands down. He's going to drive the success of that team. And if I had to pick a Calder right now, it's got to be Celebrini. I don't see how anybody else is coming close to having the impact on their team that he has.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I mean, I think him and Will Smith are definitely a force to be reckoned with on that team. And I'm so glad they kept them together instead of breaking them up. And I think it's probably a system moving forward that a lot of NHL teams are going to be looking at. Like, hey, where's our star guy? Who's the guy that we're going to go after? Okay, who's his line mates? Or who's on his team that we could just slide in so we can boost our guy for 1-2 years. You know what I mean? So now I'm not saying Will Smith is a shitter. I'm saying Will Smith is probably going to be on the Sharks for a long time. I know that sounded bad when I said it, but
I know what you mean. Yep.
So I definitely think Macklin Celebrini is up there. I would that I would be remiss if I would leave out Dustin Wolf. What he's doing up in Calgary, 20 wins in his first season,
Yeah,
Jenks. Like as a goaltender in Canada, like I think that's just a crazy run he's been on.
yeah,
Calgary's definitely found their goaltender for the future. I know they've been searching for a guy to replace the start that Riddick Riddick guy did he play in Calgary, right?
he did at one
Okay,
point,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. So he was on fire when he came in as a backup, and I think Dustin Wolf has just slid in here for his first season and almost solidified himself as the guy up there. Now we'll see
Yeah,
next year. You know, it could be a Matt Murray effect, could be a Tristan Jarry effect. They need to
yep,
get somebody to challenge him. So I think maybe next year they bring in somebody like Jake Allen. I know that's not going to happen. Or like, you know, maybe bring Ryan Miller out of freaking retirement and say, hey, can you just talk to this guy, make sure he doesn't do drugs like Robin Leonard and go to Vegas and gamble all his money away or something. So I
yeah,
think just keeping him level headed is Calgary's next goal. And
absolutely.
maybe upgrade a barn, not make the guy pays for soda or something. I don't know. So, all right, Calder, we got um, Macklin Celebrini. Give us your Norris Trophy winner, Jenks.
So I think the popular pick is going to be Kale McCarr, and there's a very good case for it to be Kale McCarr. He's the leading defenseman in points. He is consistently a difference maker. I mean, he's one of the top 5 players in the NHL at any position right now,
Yeah.
and he's going to continue to be. But if I think about it a little bit more, you know, I think you also can make a case for Quinn Hughes. He's had some health issues this year, but there's been a lot of instability with the Canucks. Obviously, that JT Miller crap went on between him and Pedersen. They moved on from JT Miller. The offense has been struggling a bit in Vancouver, and Quinn Hughes has been the most consistent thing
Yep.
going for that team. And in spite of all of that frustration and struggle in Vancouver, he has been unbelievable. Um, he's had, I think I just said it, he's had some health issues. He's been in and out of the lineup a couple of times. So he's got a few games less played, but on a points per game basis, he's been the number one defenseman in the NHL. So I think I'm going to stick with Quinn Hughes as my pick for the Norris favorite right now.
Yeah, it's funny when Bill Guerin just casually throws out Quinn Hughes, knowing he's on the injured reserve list or
Yeah,
the
right.
disability list for the
Yeah,
NHL. Maybe hoping
yeah.
like Quinn would be like, yeah, like I can go on a broken leg. Yeah, hell yeah. Like,
Do you want me to
um,
play on one leg? I'll play on one leg.
bruise on a leg is a hell of a long way from hard. I mean, pretty much that sort of scenario. I couldn't agree more. I think Quinn Hughes out after the injury is going to come back and be just as dominant as he was before. And special shout out, I think if I didn't have to pick Kale McCarr, I would definitely be going Zach Werenski. He's having a career year.
Yeah,
Halfway through the season, has more points than he ever had in a full season. Now he has had some injury struggles through the midway through his career. Now he's 8 years in. Um, so I think the NHL is in good hands as far as D men go. I know it was scary seeing Carlson, Letang, and Victor Hedman getting older, and
yeah,
these guys kind of tailing off, like Ryan McDonough, like Truba. I hate to say it, but um, you know, so I think we got our next generation of D men that some of these kids that are coming up are going to be looking forward to and looking at for inspiration to grow from. So
yeah.
it's nice to see some of these guys step up. All right, moving on to the Vesna Trophy winner, Jenks. I think that
Yep.
this might be an easy one based off of Four Nations, but give me your pick.
So I think you sort of mentioned it. We already talked about him, but take away the Four Nations. I mean, he played great there, but he has been just on a different level
Yep.
as far as goaltenders this year, and it's Connor Hellebuck. I mean, he leads the NHL in every category: goals against, save percentage, and shutouts for goalies. He's the best player to wear a Jets uniform. I don't care regardless of position. He is making that team go. Any night that you've got Connor Hellebuck in the net, you're looking at that and saying, we can win this game. I don't care how banged up the rest of our lineup is. I don't care who we're playing. We can win this game because we've got the best goaltender in the net. So
yep.
To me, it's an easy pick this year. I think the Vezina is going to Hellebuck.
This is like the NBA effect coming into the NHL, where you're like, yeah, you got it last year. You're still the best. Like, do we mix it up? And I'm going to mix it up this year. I think the only other even contending goalie to Hellebuck based off of team performance is Logan Thompson of the Washington Capitals. I think he's got the save percentage. He's right there. He's got the GAA as well. I think what he's done for the Caps this year in Ovi's possibly final year is absolutely insane. This guy's got 25 wins in 32 games. What? Like, that's practically crazy to be a goaltender and do that. He's only 2 regulation losses, Jenks. Like, the guy doesn't really know how to lose. He's never heard of it. Never heard of her either. She tries calling, never calls back. And, Team Canada for Four Nations, the GM didn't want him because he was the GM in Vegas, right? So didn't want him, used to play with him. He's like, I don't want that guy, screw him. Now, and he's going to come back with a vengeance. Watch the Caps only lose like a handful of games. I'd say under 5 the rest of the year. They already dog toss my Pittsburgh Penguins 8-3. They came back. It's just absolutely crazy. So I think if we're going to go a different route, that's the route that I'm going to go with. Logan Thompson for Vezina. All right.
You can definitely make a case for him. He has stabilized that net when Washington needs him most. So I can definitely see that perspective.
Well, I think the NHL also thrives on popularity. Like, who's the most popular guy right now?
Yeah.
Especially for these awards. Like, I think some of them don't even matter sometimes. Like, Swayman and Olmark, like, they shared, like, co-Vezinas, or, like, the Islander guys, like, co-Vezinas, like, they were the most popular that year for sure because they did something that nobody's thought about in a long time. Like, we can play our backup goalie. Weird. Like, let's just toss him in for like half a season. Oh, like, sure, I guess. Crazy thought process. But getting on to the main course here, let's go President's Trophy.
President's
2
Trophy.
teams. I think President's Trophy and Vezinas, they're like mustard and ketchup on a hot dog. They just go together. Jenks. Maybe sprinkle a little pepper on there. Actually, I don't like mustard. I just see a lot of people using the double strands, the double singles. Give me your President's Trophy winner.
So I think, the President's Trophy is, as, everybody likes to say, you don't want to win the President's Trophy because there's a curse that comes with that. You don't win the cup and the President's Trophy. I look at the top of the league right now, and there's really only 2 teams that are in it for me. It's Winnipeg and Washington. And I think you can probably make a case that either one of those teams is going to get it done. If I just think about, for example, we just talked about the goaltending differences. And, you named Washington's goalie for Vezina, and I named Winnipeg's goalie. And if I just look at that purely them at a head-to-head basis, I think Connor Hellebuck is the better goaltender. And I think the Winnipeg Jets are probably in a better position to lock that down and get more points through the remainder of the year. So I think Washington's going to come close. I think Ovechkin's going to finish strong. I think the whole team's going to finish strong. But I think Winnipeg probably takes the President's Trophy this year. That's my gut feel on it.
That's interesting. I'm going to go the opposite way.
I had a feeling you would.
Based solely on, I think the East right now is so top heavy. Like, the Caps are just dominating everybody. Where they're going to be able to get more wins out of that conference or division than the Winnipeg Jets are going to get in the Western Conference. Because, you look at teams like Dallas that has Ottinger. You look at teams like Edmonton, Vegas, like the Kings are starting to pick it up this year with Byfield tearing it up. So it's like, I don't know what the Western Conference is going to shake out. Like Colorado and the Canucks are in the wild card spot. Like, no, thank you. No, nope. I don't want to play them at all. So, it's scary when you look at the wild card on the East is Ottawa and Detroit, right? So, like, and next closest is Columbus. Now, I think the Caps are just going to be able to turn over some of the Eastern Conference teams towards the end of the year and solidify that President's Trophy. So that's why I am, just big math guy. I'm not looking at the goaltenders, I'm just looking at basic math. And the math tells me the Capitals are going to win the President's Trophy this year, which is good because that means they don't get a cup. So it's a double win. All right, Jenks. The final trophy, the coveted, the most wanted Hart Trophy. Give me your pick.
I think this trophy has probably gotten a little boring in the last couple of years, and I think that's because we've got two guys that are just on a different level, and that's McDavid and McKinnon. Okay, if one of these guys, if somebody else, I don't care who it is, if somebody else is not having like some insane year leading the league in scoring, it's going to go to one of these two every year. McDavid, not saying he hasn't had a bad year by any means, but McKinnon has been the difference maker this year. I think if you watch the Four Nations, he was a difference maker every time he was on the ice. He looks like he's just a step faster than everybody.
Yeah.
He's currently leading the NHL in points. And he's a big reason why I know Colorado got off to a rough start this season, and he's a big reason why they've climbed back into the mix. So given that nobody else has come into the picture as this difference maker, we don't have any shocking seasons from anybody. I think McKinnon's probably going to walk away with this thing, and it's going to continue to be boring, bounce back and forth between McDavid and McKinnon. So that's my guess for the Hart.
That's a good guess. I would say a close second to that. Like you said, these trophies are sometimes so boring, and it means I would say just a sliver to some of these guys in comparison to the Stanley Cup. Now, if you don't win the Stanley Cup, then if you're in playoffs and you get one of these awards, it kind of doesn't mean anything. But if you're not, and you get it, that means a lot. Yeah. I think Leon Draisaitl was definitely a close second this year. Leading the league in goals. Rocket Richard definitely in sight for this guy. On a line with McJesus sometimes. I think he kind of gets overshadowed a little bit, and he's 1 point behind McKinnon in the points race. Like, if McKinnon is a difference maker in Colorado and barely squeaks into the wild card, I think you have to talk about how Leon Draisaitl is having a really almost a standard year for him at this point, right? Like, we talk about how boring it is to pick McDavid. Why not give it to the other guy that got an MVP award a couple of years ago too? So it begs to differ. Like, maybe Leon Draisaitl is maybe we should put him as a face of the NHL sometimes. He doesn't speak that much good English, but he's working on it. It's legible. It's legible. It's definitely better than Malkin. That's for sure.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, he's been here half the time Malkin has, and it's definitely better than Malkin.
Yeah. So I think those two guys are kind of the giveaways. I don't think Kucherov. They're not going to give it to a Russian. The only Russian that the NHL cares about right now is Ovi. That's it. They're not going to put MVP on another Russian, just because times we live in, time and place. But yeah, man, it's shaping up to be a stellar year. I mean, just scrolling down the list here of the guys who got points, like Marchenko has 56
Yep.
points from the St. Louis, Columbus Blue Jackets. Who the hell is that guy? Who's he?
He's a young guy. He's having a career year too. Probably him and Wierenski just hooking up for a bunch of points.
Yeah, probably. Wierenski's tied for 18th in points. So,
Yeah.
big years for some of these guys that are. It's kind of a breakout year to see who's the next group of guys that everybody's going to cheer for. So, Penguins need to get someone. We have Russ. In Russ we trust. I get it, but he's a minor player to the big scheme.
Yeah.
But Jenks, it is your time to shine. College hockey news throughout the last 2 weeks. Break it down for us.
We are in the final push here to get into the playoff picture here, and I not too much to cover today. I just want to highlight one huge upset over the weekend, and that is coming from your Penn State Nittany Lions with a sweep of the number 1 Michigan State Spartans.
Are they still number 1 after that?
They are now number 3. They've dropped to number 3. Penn State, I'm going to be a homer here for a little bit, but the fact is they started off the season pretty rough. They started off 0-6 in conference play. They have been on an absolute tear lately, and they're doing everything they possibly can to drag themselves back into the playoff hunt. They've climbed up to 15 in the official rankings. After starting, the first half of the season, they were unranked, and they've been playing so well that they've gotten themselves up to 15. They still have to jump a bunch of people or hope for an at-large bid because the Big Ten's very strong this year. Minnesota's at 2, Michigan State's at 3, Ohio State at 8, Michigan at 11. So you're looking at 4 teams right there that they would have to jump. It's not going to happen. They're not going to win the conference. So they're going to have to finish strong and hope for an at-large bid into the tournament this year. But they're just playing unbelievable hockey right now. Shout out to Aiden Fink, tied for the lead in the nation for points.
Whoa.
He's been a difference maker for them. 45 points. He's just been unbelievable.
Just pond hockey for the guy at this point.
It looks too easy for him. So yeah, but it's actually fun to see these guys climbing back into it. I actually caught the game on Friday night.
On the second Big Ten Ocho channel,
on Big Ten Network, I watched that game. Yeah. Man, they're playing good hockey. They're shutting it down, and they're getting contributions from their big guys like Fink. So, personally, I hope they can find their way into the tournament. I think they've still got a ways to go here, but certainly back in the conversation. So we'll see how the season finishes out here. A couple more weeks to make a statement and get into the playoffs.
And that is your college hockey news presented by Jenkins. So that was good. I'm looking forward to the end of the year and seeing how it shakes up for the Frozen Four. Our final segment, fan favorite. Writing on our wall picks, we are doing Saturday, if I can find the date, March 1st. A full slate of games to pick from, Jenks. We're dialing up to you first. Who do you have on your wall?
So this team has turned the corner a little bit. I'll say they've been in rebuild mode for quite a while now, and they've seemed to have stockpiled a number of young talent, and they're in the mix. They're actually in the mix for a playoff spot this year, and I don't think anybody is really expecting that. And they've got a guy who you wouldn't expect to be a goon, apparently decided to goon it up a little bit. Now he's on a 3-game sussy in Zebras. But man, I don't know. They seem to be putting it together. Their young guys are starting to figure it out a little bit. They've got some veterans in there as well, and they've got a home matchup on Saturday against a Chicago team that is sort of in the same boat. They're getting younger. They're trying to turn it around, and they're not having the same luck quite yet. Obviously, we've talked about Bedard's frustrations and stuff over the season, and I just think Anaheim is in a much better position right now than Chicago is. So a home ice game, on the West Coast on Saturday night against a struggling Chicago team. I think Anaheim's got this thing in the bag. So give me the Ducks over the Blackhawks on Saturday.
All right, bet the house on it, bet the mortgage. So I think Saturday is a special game. There is a Stadium Series game going on, and it's also a big, 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 big playoff matchup. Red Wings versus Columbus Blue Jackets. Columbus is out by let me quick math here, 2 points, and the Red Wings are at the number 1 wild card spot. So possibly jump action in the wild card spot if the Columbus Blue Jackets upset your Detroit Red Wings. Now, Patty Kane, the guy just puts Genos in the back of the net consistently. The guy just is an endless goal machine outside of Ovi. This guy's the best American goal scorer that we got. Now, that being said, we did talk up Orensky a lot. We highlighted that Crow Michelangelo guy. He was really, really good too. So I think I'm going to go with the Red Wings here. I don't think I can count on Werenski off the USA, hype back into another, outdoor, like weird environment game. He's probably going to be checked out for at least a week. I know some of those like longer stint tournaments, they take it out of you. So I think Kaner's going to be all fired up. He didn't get the invite. He didn't get the call. Bill Guerin didn't horn him up. So I think the way the Red Wings are just moving right now, their goaltenders are playing fairly good. Ken Talbot as a backup with Lyon in net. Leon, Alex, my guy. Ex-Florida Panther guy. I don't know why they ever got rid of him, but who knows? I just think they have better, younger talent. DeBrincat, Raymond, what's that guy? Sauter. Give me some pipes, put them together with some solder, that guy. So take your Detroit Red Wings over the Columbus Blue Jackets in the Stadium Series game and put that in the bank and smoke it. Any last words for the People Jacks? Live, laugh, love. All right. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, Black Aces Hockey, and Black Aces Hockey Podcast. And I'm your host, Blaine Adams, and I'm right here as always with your co-host, Nick Jenkins. Out of here.